So who do I think wins between Daniel Cormier and Jon Bones Jones at UFC 182 on Saturday as Jon Jones looks to defend his title? Honestly, this is probably, if not the toughest, one of the toughest fights I've ever picked. I've been going back and forth pretty much every day. I look at this fight from multiple angles and look at the dynamics of what each fighter has to offer from a modest perspective as someone that has never fought. And it really just goes down to which assets each fighter possesses that you value more when predicting the fight. Strength-wise, I think that Daniel Cormier is going to have that kind of old man wrestler strength where he could kind of just grab someone and tear them apart. That's going to be tough to implement against Jon Jones, though. Jon Jones is a phenomenal just a phenomenal strategist. He puts himself in the best position to win a lot of times by doing what his opponents excel the most at. I mean, he got in a slugfest against Glover Teixeira. He outboxed Quentin Jackson. He outboxed Alexander Gustafsson. Took Shogun down, jiu-jitsu black belt, and beat him on the ground there until he tapped out. I mean, Jon Jones really, I think this is the fight where he takes a step back from that approach. I know he's been talking a lot about how he's going to out-wrestle Daniel Cormier. I'd be surprised if he took that approach. I think this is where he has to put the brakes on his doing better than what everyone else has done to him in the past. Simply because Daniel Cormier is a different animal. This is a guy who took 4th in the Olympics, would have wrestled in the Olympics again if his kidneys didn't fail him as he cut weight, and forget his wrestling pedigree, this guy's a very good MMA fighter. This guy hasn't even used his wrestling in the majority of his fights. He ragdolled Dan Henderson, who's a former Olympian himself, threw him around like a little kid, big brothered him, and doing that to Daniel Cormier, Jon Jones, I just don't feel as though that's very feasible. Not as feasible as his past attempts have been to outdo his opponents at their strengths. So what does each man have to do to win the fight? It's really anyone's guess, but for my money, I think Jon Jones is obviously going to have to keep Daniel Cormier at bay. He's got a very long reach, the longest reach in the UFC. He's got to utilize that against Daniel Cormier, who's going to be far outdone reach-wise and height-wise. Uses leg kicks, uses jab. That's not to say that Jon Jones is in bad shape by any means if the fight goes in close quarters. In fact, perhaps the most potent offense Jon Jones has shown in the UFC has been his close quarter elbows. This is a guy that can elbow from any angle. Spinning back elbow, elbow from the clinch. He will, against Rashad Evans, who's right now still a top 5 light heavyweight, he was able to grab Rashad Evans' wrist, control him, and elbow him. That's something you don't see from anyone. I don't feel as though he'll be able to do that against Daniel Cormier, though. A more modest approach, I think, would serve him best. Daniel Cormier, if he can close the distance and keep his guard up, obviously, take Jon Jones down, land some heavy offense, I think will do him best. Jon Jones is not a guy that's just going to go down, though. He's got very good wrestling himself in MMA context, and very well may get a takedown himself against Daniel Cormier if set up with strikes first and foremost. Jon Jones does a great job shooting instinctively, which is something that you can't learn on the wrestling mat. In MMA context, we've seen time and time again very good wrestlers get out-wrestled by inferior wrestlers just because they're not used to getting punched and wrestling simultaneously. Daniel Cormier, though, is very good at transitioning. He's got very good upper body Greco wrestling. He comes from a freestyle background, so he can obviously shoot a double. He's been able to high crotch much bigger men than Jon Jones. His combinations are very technical. He's got great power. He was able to knock out Antonio Bigfoot Silva way back in his career when he was not even close to the fighter he is now. He's improved greatly. His weight cut has gone well. He's a huge 205-pounder. Jon Jones is as well. I'd say size-wise, these men are going to come in at about the same weight, I would imagine. If Jon Jones does go to his back, though, I'm interested to see what he looks like. How good of a grappler is he? We haven't really seen him on his back for a sustained period of time. Alexander Gustafsson took him down for a very short period of time. I want to see what type of offense he has. He does have some long limbs. He is a strong guy with a very strong grip. Maybe he can get a hold of a triangle. It's tough to say. Daniel Cormier, a lot of times, is used as wrestling and defense, but I think he is going to try to take down Jon Jones, and when he gets Jon Jones to the ground, I'm just as intrigued to see what he does. Is he going to try to pass his guard? Daniel Cormier has not really shown to be the most offensive submission grappler. He's favored more so the ground and pound approach, using more of a wrestling approach, riding his opponent as opposed to sinking the hooks in. Not really going for many submissions. He pretty much tapped out Dan Henderson after he just beat the tar out of him from ground and pound dominance. If he does get on top of Jon Jones, I think he's going to be happy to just stay in full guard, maybe half guard, land some elbows, punches. But Jon Jones, with his grip and his reach, I wouldn't be actually surprised if Jon Jones actually does show some threats off his back that he hasn't shown in fights. If Daniel Cormier gets on his back, I think he's in big trouble. If he doesn't stand up right away, he's going to suffer some heavy offensive blows from Jon Jones, who his elbows, I'm telling you, from ground and pound are just so efficacious. Knock people out, break their eye socket. And let's not forget, Jon Jones has a devastating submission grappling arsenal. His guillotine choke is lethal. He will put you to sleep. He's got a very good grip, as I've been saying. Daniel Cormier gets in on a shot and doesn't set it up, he'll be put to sleep with a choke instantly. Really looking forward to this fight. Cardio-wise, it's tough to say who has the advantage. It really just goes down to how much each fighter trained for this particular fight. Jon Jones has gotten tired later in fights in the past, but recently he's looked very good later in the fights and actually turned it up when he really needed to against Alexander Gustafsson. Daniel Cormier has not even come close to gassing in any of his fights, so I don't think that depending on how much offense they put on each other will really dictate how tired each man gets. But I'm quite confident that both men will come in excellent shape and won't really gas, but who knows, maybe they take some body shots, one another takes body shots and they get winded. Jon Jones does have some very good knees. Daniel Cormier, despite his size, can get his kicks up there, probably even throw a head kick if he wants to, if it's set up well. But if the fight stays at a distance, I definitely favor Jon Jones. If it goes in close quarters, I can still see Jon Jones winning there, but I really do think that Daniel Cormier's just aggression, his power, his strength is going to be the difference. I think that his cardio supplements his game very well, allows him to fight at a high pace. I'm talking high octane offense, punches, elbows going from all angles from both men. I might change my mind tomorrow, but if you put a gun to my head now and you ask me who I think is going to win this, I think I slightly favor Daniel Cormier. How he wins, I don't know. I guess I'll say decision. Really have no idea how this fight's going to play out other than what I've said, though. Anyone's guess is really just as good as mine. But fight that I'm really looking forward to, I'd be surprised if there's a fight that happens in 2015 that's even bigger than this one. Probably going to be 750,000 plus pay-per-view buys. Should be a good fight, though. Really looking forward to it.